a lot of attention is being focused on the protests in the European countries, the farming protests. The reality is that when we were in the European Union, farming did very well out of French protests. British farmers really relied on European farmers to kick off and resist changes that were damaging to agriculture. And that was confirmed today in the Telegraph, actually, when one of their journalists was spitting about how the European farmers always got in the way of liberalising trade. And as I'm sure you remember, that the terrible American trade deal, TTIP, was blocked largely because of the strength of agriculture in Europe. But the truth is, the changes that the European Union are trying to push farmers into are minimal compared to what British farmers have experienced thanks to Brexit and also years of successive British governments that don't seem to understand the need for food production in Britain and don't seem to respect farming. Although they say they do, in reality the policies that we've had over the decades have seen British farming contract, and the power has gone to the supermarkets. But Brexit has been incredibly damaging to British farmers, and had this happened to European farmers, goodness only knows what they would be doing. We have lost our subsidies. European farmers still have subsidies. We have lost our labour source. European farmers still have freedom of movement. We have lost access to the biggest free market in the world. And that free market had access to our market for 3 years up until last week when these checks came in. We have also lost control of our market. The new trade deals have liberalised Britain and opened Britain up to countries like Australia and New Zealand, and that will continue to get worse as time goes on. In Europe, they don't have anything near this. We've got diminished access to Canada because of Canada trying to force us to accept hormone-fed meat. So the other thing that's been so damaging is that the government have changed the agriculture policy. We have an Agriculture Act, which is agriculture in name, but really it's an environmental act. It hardly mentions food production. The government no longer recognise food as a public good. Only in the environment is a public good. And this is a concern for us all because our food security is really in a lot of trouble, and our food supply that we relied on from Europe is going to contract now these new checks are coming in, and we are going to experience food shortages. And all the while everybody's going, oh, look what's going on in Europe. You're not looking at what's going on in Britain. You know, yes, they're feisty and fiery. The European farmers and communities are well connected. They're well backed by the public. That just isn't the case in Britain. And not to mention the fact that Brexit divided, the country down the middle, including farmers and many other trades. The truth is we all need food. And the truth is the world is not as secure as it was when we voted for Brexit in 2016. And the need for food production is really important, and the need to back farming is really important. But we don't need the backing of people who've got a different agenda, which is about trying to deflect and blame the EU and continue to blame the EU for problems. And if Brexit hadn't happened, who knows, what the world would look like. But for sure, if Brexit hadn't happened, we wouldn't be having the food crisis and the real risk of much more severe food crises coming in the short and medium term.